Hi, welcome to today's Leaders in Mental Wellness and Diabetes, where you will hear insights from the top minds in the world of diabetes care. Hosted by Dr. Char.
Hi, Ginger. Thanks for being with me today.
Hi, Dr. Char. Thank you for having me.
Ginger is a content manager for Beyond Type 1, and she's here to help change what it means to deal with the diabetes. And that is so important in my world and those that I deal with. So welcome to this podcast. Before I ask you anything about your journey with diabetes itself, tell me about the two little girls and the talk of a puppy dog that I see on your socials.
I have two children, Lucy and Violet. They are 4.5 and 6.5, and they are best friends. Quarantine actually brought them closer together last year. And we have an 11-year-old pup named Petey, and can't complain. Life is good.
I love that he's 11 years old and you're still saying Petey. You're still saying he's a pup.
And they're babies forever, right?
Right. Mine's a Chihuahua, and she's laying over here right by me right now. Wherever I am, she thinks she's supposed to be.
Yes.
But since I'm a much older girl, my little one is probably older than you right now. He's 41.
Maybe.
He's 41.
Oh, okay.
And he's still my little boy. And those little girls look adorable. They make life worthwhile, don't they?
Absolutely. 35 pounds of trouble is how I describe the youngest one.
But it's such a great thing. It's a great time for that kind of mischief and trouble. It's just an awesome thing as they grow into who they are. And somehow when they become adults, they typically manage to pull it all together and make it wonderful. Okay,
Yes.
tell us today, how did you get started into helping others with diabetes?
I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 13. I saw all the symptoms on my classmate's poster in the 7th grade that he was preparing for the 7th grade health fair. And I had all the symptoms on his poster. And, it was blurry vision, weight loss that didn't really make sense. I wasn't weighing myself when I was 13, but I had lost noticeable weight over the course of the previous 3 weeks. I later realized it was about 10 pounds, which is a lot, and extremely thirsty, extremely tired, peeing a lot. And my legs just felt like they weighed 1,000,000 pounds. I remember lying on the floor and being like, Mom, I can't go to school. My legs feel terrible. And she's like, what are you talking about? Go to school. My whole family had gotten the flu, and it was kind of like mine just didn't go away. And a week later started crying because nobody believed me when I said, I think I have diabetes. I saw it on that poster, and turned out my blood sugar was sky high. And indeed, I had type 1 diabetes. And to clarify, just because there's so much talk these days about flu vaccines and COVID and triggering things like diabetes, they have found in research, thanks to TrialNet and the JDRF, that you start developing type 1 diabetes years before you have symptoms. Yes. So something stressful on your body, like the flu, is what brought out the full onset. It didn't cause it, but it kind of triggered that full onset of the disease that was already in development.
Well, that's interesting. I've been diagnosed since 16, and I'm 64 now. So it's been almost 5 decades. And then it was kind of a bleak story. I mean, nothing sounded hopeful. Quite honestly. Yeah. And yet my family didn't understand, but I had hormonal issues at age 11. Oh. Now, so as years went on, I'm right now in a study with the University of Chicago, the MODI study, to see if there's other kinds of diabetes out there.
Right.
Well, yes. 154 tests have been done on my blood, and I am none of those. I'm not type 2, so I am a 1, but it's just interesting that now while still scratching their heads at me, there's that hormonal problem at 11 that may very well have I didn't have the thick hair for it to be some of the things they were diagnosing hormonally as I grew older with diabetes. I didn't have coarse hair on my arms. And I remember somebody saying that to me. Well, it's not this, it's not that. But I've been a case study, I think, for a while. And so it's interesting to know that we are talking about now that it happens before the 3 weeks of those horrible symptoms that send most of us, and it sends most of us to the hospital. But if not, you go home with something to navigate that is just beyond your comprehension. But now what I'm grateful for is to know that there's that language. We've not been on here 5 minutes and we're talking about the years before diagnosis. It just didn't happen with me. The medical professionals didn't know it. They didn't mean to not know it. It just was not known. So we're living
of research. Yeah. And kudos to you for 50 years you were diagnosed before you really had the tools to achieve healthy blood sugars, so kudos to you for getting through that.
Thank you. I had to pee on a stick. I didn't have a monitor. I had to pee on a stick.
No, yeah. And I've interviewed people who were diagnosed back in those kind of 60s and 70s. And one woman said that when glucose meters did come out in the, I guess, late 80s, 90s, I'm forgetting now, she was so used to not having one that she thought, what do I need one of those for? Because it was just so different than first 20 years of living with type 1. So
and it wasn't like doctors were pushing you to it. They were as skeptical as you. They were like, we're going to try it. It's like, it's new. And it's just funny because now what would I do in the middle of the night if this Dexcom didn't go off and tell me my blood sugar was low, and a husband or a son show up at my bedside with something to eat, or just ask you a million times what's your blood sugar. And all you have to do now is pull up the phone.
Right. My fella could scan my arm while I'm sleeping if he wanted and know what my blood sugar is at this point, right? So could yours if you're wearing a Dexcom.
I had one Chihuahua who could tell by a sweaty nightgown. I had one Chihuahua who knew I was in a low. This little girl, she's all about herself. She doesn't know it all. Okay. The reason I wanted to talk to you, it is such an honor that you took the time. The books you've written, the people you've written and given content for is amazing in itself. But the books you have written, I want them all. So Amazon, here I come. But when I go low and pregnancy, well, my only 41-year-old is adopted. So I don't think I need that one anymore. But the science of it all, the emotional eating, which is my specialty, I'll just want to critique that a little bit. I'm just kidding. But the one that interests me most right now is dealing with diabetes burnout. Can you tell us anything about the others that would interest my viewers? But could you mostly tell us about burnout?
Sure. Really quickly, when I go low is for kids with type 1 and teaches them how to talk about the symptoms and spot the symptoms of lows in themselves. Pregnancy with type 1 diabetes is the first ever and still the only guide dedicated entirely to pregnancy with type 1 diabetes and how to manage your blood sugar for it. And I self-published that with my diabetes educator, who's also a type 1 and has birthed 2 kids. And so we're very proud of that. And I'm glad that it's out there and available now.
Yes.
Your diabetes science experiment I wrote in college because when I first started training in competitive powerlifting, my endocrinologist laughed at me and wouldn't help me at all. And so I ended up learning basic exercise physiology from a friend's med school textbook, and my powerlifting coach, who was very knowledgeable and helped me apply that knowledge to type 1 diabetes. So that's where that book came from.
Well,
very young.
Could I stop the process before we go on? So
Sure.
that is the I read somewhere that you're all into a program and helping people with exercise. I even made a note for myself that how do I join that program? But
I don't manage any current programs. I used to coach people, and I was a personal trainer for a while, but I used to coach people in diabetes, helping them manage their blood sugars around exercise. Now I just try to write about it as much as possible because I don't have time to do the coaching.
so the science experience one is about that.
Science experiment. Yeah, I created templates basically that you can fill in for yourself, and then start with kind of the basic understanding of how different types of exercise impact your blood sugar, and then take your own notes for your life, your time of day, the meals you eat around exercise, and figure out how to create a solid routine around your favorite type of exercise or your time of day that you love exercising, and help you manage your blood sugars better so that it's more enjoyable and safer.
I feel like a patient here that's just receiving because I'm so excited. I can't wait to go get that one. We won't make this about me today, but I am writing an ebook right now around anxiety and diabetes. And so that
Yes.
that exercise part is where I walk 2 or 3 miles in the morning, but other than that, I've been doing this a long time and I don't have great information. And if I don't, others will benefit from it too. So that's,
I think it
important.
contributes to a lot of burnout too, because people try to be active and then their blood sugars go haywire. And so it feels so impossible and frustrating. I don't compete in powerlifting anymore, but I really love exercising. I'm active every day. And I really love teaching people how to fit their favorite exercise into diabetes management, or the other way around.
That is amazing. Okay, I stopped you on the roll of the books, but the next one
Sure.
was emotional eating. Tell us.
Emotional eating with diabetes, I wrote because not only did I have to overcome that in my own life when I was a diabetes coach, I was finding the same patterns and relationships with food in nearly everybody. And it stems from being told all these foods are bad because you have diabetes, including an apple, let alone chocolate cake, like the stereotype of what mainstream media thinks of as bad for people with diabetes. And unraveling that and detangling it so that you feel more empowered when you're making good choices for yourself, and that you're not expecting 100% perfection, and really finding a balance that works for you. There's no one diet for everybody. Some people love eating their low carb, that's pretty strict, devoted low carb diet. And for some people that drives their head crazy and makes them want to rebound in the other direction. So you have to find what works for you.
I have followed one lady who literally reverses type 2 with plant-based. And then I have a nephew who with keto, he's lost 100 pounds off all medications. And I said to him, do you realize you've probably reversed your diabetes? And I don't know that he exactly thought of it in that way, but he's healthy now. So I have seen people on both sides of that. There's
a lot of ways too. They're calling it remission now in medical lingo. They're putting type 2 into remission. It means you've achieved normal blood sugars. And there's so many different ways to go about improving your insulin sensitivity and your blood sugar levels, whether you have type 1 or type 2, and finding the one that works for you that you can sustain long term and have peace of mind around,
And if we're readers, avid readers, and not even so much just readers, but you are in that space that will keep us informed, because not just because you're a great writer and you do that for a living, but I don't think I have to have cancer to see a patient and help them with their issues and their anxiety or whatever around that. But at the same time, being type 1, I've seen it in 30 plus years be a drastic help in that I understand diabetes. Right. So you couldn't write those books with a better understanding.
Right.
So
I like solving problems in type 1. I like identifying the challenges and then coming up with like solutions that people can personalize for themselves. And, in type 1, it's like hour by hour in the tiniest little things. I don't even like talking to an endocrinologist who doesn't have type 1 diabetes, because there's too many little details in real life that they have not experienced or seen up close. And it takes there are a few non-diabetic healthcare providers out there who have the knowledge as though they live with it themselves, but I think that's hard to find, and we really learn from each other.
My endocrinologist as well is type 1, and just about everybody
Perfect.
in that office, everybody, the educator, everybody is. And I think I'm the one in mental health that was chosen to be part of that setting because I'm type 1. Maybe not because of my brilliance, but because I'm type 1. But that does empower. It helps. It lends to credibility. There's just so many things. And we're a little snobbish about it. We like to know. We're just a little snobbish about it. We think you get it if you've been there. But the other thing about it, I would love to know your opinion. I think of all the things that we could deal with in life, diabetes brings things that when I'm going out to serve or to help, when you're going out in your field, or my Dr. Huffman, that is an endocrinologist, it's practical things that people want. It's not something that is, any kind of surgery, anything. Yes, I understand. It's, it's major when it's me, it's minor when it's you. So I get that it's important, anything that anybody's going through, but there's something practical that makes it easy to want to help and to help. It makes our job easier. Speak to that for me a minute. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think because in type 1, let's say someone goes to a therapist for anxiety and stress, and talking to someone about a positive mindset or deep breathing exercises to get through anxiety only goes so far. If you are a person with type 1 who every day after lunch, your blood sugar is plummeting and you don't know why and you don't know what to do about it, or if you're trying to be more active and you can't figure out how to go for a jog without having to eat 100 carbs after or before, right? There's just too many real life things that intertwine with your mental that you can't address just one thing. You have to also help that person navigate the blood sugar juggling act.
Yeah, it's every day, all day long. Something can change on a dime. One of the little things that I do, did I say I wasn't going to make this about me? Here I go. One of the things that I love to do is help people with the knowledge, first of all, the understanding that the limbic system is for fight or flight. So we're made to have the stress of an emergency, but those lows can make me grumpy as heck. But it's my responsibility, privilege, and obligation. When the emergency's over, I don't have to walk in stress. So now I have to get my little butt in gear, change that mood and that mode. My blood sugar is 87 now. I have no excuse to remain emotionally depleted. So I love that I've learned that the hard way, but I'm trained well enough to know that if people want that kind of help, I'm your girl.
Yeah. And to me, what you're describing is resilience. And that's why I think type 1s are some of the most resilient people, because we could bottom out after breakfast, right? And then still have to get through our day and present at work or go pick up our kids once our blood sugar is safe, of course, and you're safe to drive. But you just have to get through the day regardless of what your blood sugar is and bounce back.
Well, what do you do and how do you help people in your writing that you have a low, you're sitting at a dinner table, you get very quiet, the people around you look at you like you have 3 heads, only because 30 minutes pass, you have struggled internally through that, you have held your head up, and as soon as you recover, you go back to normalcy, and yet they might be looking at you as if, are you a drama queen or what? Or do they look at you with a lack of understanding? Do you write about that anywhere that we could look up and find?
I mean, my personal philosophy on that is you can wear your diabetes with shame or you can wear it with pride. So I can have a low blood sugar and still be really friggin' powerful as a person with diabetes in the world, right? It doesn't make me weak, and it's not something to be embarrassed by. It's an opportunity when when my blood sugar is back up, to teach the people closest to me. And that way, the next person with diabetes they run into in their life, they'll be an even better source of support. If you wear it with shame and you act like it's something to be embarrassed by, they're going to see it as something to be embarrassed by.
I love it. That is so good. And again, I see that coming as the years pass, that ability to not walk in shame because somebody dare tell us we don't have to. Somebody gets up like you, writes it down, shares with us. It's not shameful. I heard someone say years ago, I am not taking my 8-year-old to a nasty bathroom and injecting him with a needle. You know what I did from then on? I put my hand on my hip and I said, no more am I going into a nasty bathroom and taking a shot.
Exactly.
So it's that empowerment that this kind of community is so helpful. Don't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
What would you tell people that may not have heard of you before that only get my perspective? It's too broad for everybody just to get this Southern drawl. What would you share with them would be a good next step, no matter where they are, where they find themselves in this journey, falling off the wagon, eating well, but yet the routine is the same. We've got something changing every day, maybe every hour. Tell me I hate to use the word advice, but I don't know a better one right now. What advice do you give people?
I mean, and it's not just advice I give someone else, it's what I really try to follow that I feel like helps me thrive, is you can't wallow in self-pity. Like, let's say you go for a jog and your blood sugar crashes. There are two responses to that: frustration regardless, but you can feel sorry for yourself and say, this is impossible, this sucks, it's so pointless to try to go for a run, blah, blah, blah. Or you can say, wow, something I didn't work, right? That plan did not carry through, and I need to try something different. When you're in self-pity mode, you can't get to finding solutions. And I would challenge you to, whatever it is you're struggling with, go look on the internet for people who have overcome that particular specific challenge and are doing something that you might be struggling to do, and ask yourself, what can I learn from these people? What can I apply to my diabetes management, my routine, my knowledge pool, my toolbox that could help me get kind of better tackle this challenge? Diabetes is never easy, no matter how much you learn, right? I still work at managing my type 1 diabetes every day. My CGM line is not flat. I don't eat in a way that would make it flat, right? My blood sugars are not perfect, but I feel like for the most part, I live my life the way I want to, and diabetes comes with me, and I've learned how to tackle some of the biggest challenges, and I'm still always learning.
Awesome. That's a book in itself. Right. But as a writer and a content creator, I think I read that's what you do on this Beyond Type 1. First of all, I follow there and I enjoy that so much. Tell me about that a little bit, just so people that aren't following
Sure. Beyond Type 1 is a nonprofit that is, we do so much behind the scenes. I've worked there less than a year, and I've been freelancing for 15 years for diabetes sites across the web. But I'm so honored to be part of the Beyond Type 1 team, because we don't just create content. There are so many programs and initiatives that help impact the lives of people with diabetes all over the world. I mean, we're working on getting insulin to people in countries who are struggling to get insulin. There's a programs division that's hosting an entire Type 1 team of runners for the New York City Marathon and coaching them and guiding them through that, and like 40 or 50 people with type 1 diabetes running the marathon together, sending out disaster relief kits and information to people who are in hurricane zones. I mean, I could go on and on. Just a really powerful team of people who either have diabetes or care deeply about people who have diabetes. And we also have Beyond Type 2. And it's the same awesome productivity and the same team working on both intentions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, here's where we may be a little snobbish. I guess we could admit it, but I think you would agree that sites, communities like Beyond Type 1 and people who are maybe experiencing the disease, but are qualified in their arena where they work, it's imperative that when people research, I mean, you can find anything online now. And while that's amazing to an old girl that could find nothing, had no sources of help, it
No
didn't
support.
appear.
Yeah.
Now
Nothing.
there's this extreme amount of support, and I am so grateful. Don't get me wrong, but you also can get not so great.
There's anything on the internet, and it definitely, you have to learn how to weed through it and find what's useful. I love what Bruce Lee said once. Bruce Lee, the Kung Fu master, he said, take what's useful and leave the rest. And that definitely applies to the internet.
Well, that's good as it applies to our community as well. I think
Absolutely.
that is so good, because I see and hear so much that sometimes it's just a perspective, but sometimes I know it's not accurate. Now, there are how many younger, and I don't mean chronologically, but younger patients than me that take it because we're hungry and thirsty and no pun intended, and needing the help navigating this, and we take it as a rule instead. So I love that. Say it again, that we take what we need. Say that again.
Take what's useful and leave the rest.
And leave the rest. So if I say anything today, I want to repeat that the Beyond Type 1s and Beyond Type 2s, I've not been there even looking. Sorry, I've not been there, because this is what resonates with me. But it's those type communities that no matter what you really want to get involved in and help with, you can at the minimum gain information. Correct?
Yes. And there's community apps for both. So you can go and find a world full of others with type 1 or type 2 as well, if you're looking to really connect with real people.
Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I just want to say they could go with me to Amazon and easily find When I Go Low, Pregnancy with Type 1, Diabetes Science Experiment. I don't know if I wrote that right. Emotional eating, and dealing with burnout, all within a diabetes world.
Yes. 100%.
Anywhere else, anything I've not covered that would, I'm a little selfish while I have you on here, anything that would help the younger me or the future me. It's great mental health when I can look in my past, help my future, and then enjoy my moment. Anything. And if you help me in those three areas, you're going to help somebody else's mental health. Anything.
I mean, I think back to when I was 13, how I lived with diabetes, and I was 23, how I lived with diabetes, and I'm 35 today. And I think what's really important is that you stay open to learning, and you're not trying to force yourself into this diet or this whatever, but just constantly stay open to learning a little more each week about your blood sugars, and you will progress. So, I mean, I just can't even imagine if I knew 10 years ago what I know now about managing my blood sugars, right? But all you can do is just stay open to learning, and your relationship with diabetes will evolve positively.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today. And just to those who share with me on this journey, I want them to know that I believe someone who is such an awesome writer. First of all, that's my critique, that you know what you're talking about, because it's great content, helpful content from a perspective of been there, done that, own the t-shirt.
Been there, done that, and still learning, right?
And
that's important.
Yeah, it's true. And connected to the people that you wouldn't be working for and with. Now, this is just my unprofessional assessment, but you wouldn't be connected where you've been helping with content had you not been a pro in the arena. So I want everybody that's listening to me today, everybody, as if that's a crowd. There's not a crowd yet, but it's coming. But everyone that could listen and determine, choose a good source for your information. It is imperative that we choose a good source. And I already, just following you for a little while and then having this one wonderful conversation, I believe that it's a good recommendation to offer you as one of those sources. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk again, hopefully. And I'm going to be ordering the books, and I'm going to be following those two little girls.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.